Welcome back. This is Earnings Central, and the telecom business of Reliance Industry, Reliance Jio, has just reported their numbers, slightly lower than what the street was anticipating on the company's top line. So the revenue growth for the company has come in shy of street expectations. It's come in at close to about 2%. Margins for the company have expanded by nearly 2%, and that's driving about a 2% increase in the company's profitability. Largely stable, perhaps on the top line with a 2% revenue growth. You could say it's maybe slightly lower than what the street was anticipating. But remember, the next quarter and the following quarter are going to be the important ones, because that's when Reliance Jio's 20% tariff hike comes into effect. So in that context, the Q1 numbers are a bit of a sideshow. Stable quarter, but it's a bit of a sideshow. They don't matter so much because it's only in the subsequent quarter that the 20% tariff hike comes into effect, which will boost the company's ARPUs, and the margins. We have with us Prakash Tiwari and Balaji Subramaniam of IFL joining in. Balaji, first come in. 2% revenue growth, 2% profit growth, and about a 20 basis points expansion in margins.
Hi, Rima.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on the show. I haven't looked at the numbers in detail, but based on what you say, it does appear that my revenue growth estimate was 2.5%, maybe a little bit shy of my estimates, maybe because there was some mix change as far as ARPU is concerned. My EBITDA margin estimate was around 52.8%, so looks like there as well there is a slight miss. I wouldn't use the word miss because it's a fairly steady quarter, and the PAT growth QOQ, I was at 1%, so it looks like one of the cost line items below the EBITDA have been lower than what I was having. So net, I would say these are all pretty much inline numbers. As you were just mentioning, I think the key numbers to watch out for would be 2Q and especially 3Q. That is when we will get to know the extent to which the tariff hikes have flowed into the numbers.
Okay. So Q1 largely stable and in line with street expectations, but the bigger quarter for Reliance Jio and for the industry is going to be Q2, especially Q3. Balaji, in the conference call, it's much later, but what would be the key things to watch out now when it comes to Reliance Jio and the triggers going ahead?
I would look at the commentary that they share on the Jio Air Fiber, which is 5G FWA rollout, any color on 5G subscriber base, and stuff like, I don't think they will share CapEx numbers because it's an odd quarter, but any commentary on CapEx would also be watched out for. And I think there is not much one can glean on the tariff hike related stuff because it's probably too early. The tariff hikes happened maybe 2 weeks back. So to that extent, I don't think, it will be very initial days to draw inferences or, get comments on the extent to which tariff hikes have been received by the market.
Okay, got that. For those of you who've just tuned in, Reliance Jio has reported their Q1 numbers, revenue growth of 2%, quarter-on-quarter. EBITDA margins have increased by 20 basis points to 52.6, and the profit jump is up close to about 2%. It's another steady quarter for Reliance Jio, but it's going to be the Q2, Q3 quarter, which will show big growth numbers once that 20% tariff hike effected by the company at the beginning of June comes into effect. Prakash Tiwari is also with us on the show. Prakash, you want to come in on Reliance Jio? First to the telecom numbers.
No, absolutely, Rima. So the first thing on the revenue side, I would say, it's a very smart strategy not to push for revenues before a tariff hike. So it clearly shows that that's been good, whereas the margins very clearly remain in range with what their last quarter was. And that also indicates that they've not overspent on doing anything which is either to kind of, get market share or rationalization of SIMs and all. But what could be interesting in the commentary is what do they anticipate competitive intensity to be like after this tariff hike has been taken by all three incumbents, and what's the rollout plan that they have, because there is some semblance of discretion that the company will use in terms of which geographies, which circles they want to expand, not expand. So I think that will be very interesting because that will give us visibility of how the tariff hike will pan into revenues for the next 3 quarters. So that is what I would look forward to. Otherwise, I think these are very much in line with what the performance has been from the last many quarters.
Okay, thank you very much for joining in. Just to quickly recap the numbers. Reliance Jio's Q1 numbers in line with expectations. They've reported a very steady Q1 FY25. The company's revenue growth stands at 2% quarter-on-quarter, and on a year-on-year basis, the revenue growth stands at 10%. And just to put in context of how steady the numbers are, so this quarter, on a year-on-year basis, the revenue growth is 10.1%. The prior quarter, it was 10.9%. The quarter before that, it was 10.3%. The quarter before that, it was 9.9%. And so it was again a 9.9 in the prior quarter. So basically, for the last so many quarters, the company's revenue growth has been steady at the 10% band on a year-on-year basis. And that's continued even in the current quarter. Margins for the company have been steadily expanding. As we said, on a sequential basis, it's gone up by 20 basis points. But if you look at it, again, even on a year-on-year basis, margins are up about 30-odd basis points. So, in the absence of a big tariff hike up until now, the margins for the company have been very steady, around 52.5%, 52.6% this quarter. But in the subsequent quarters, when the flow through of the tariff hike comes into effect, we will see that benefit on the company's profitability margins. PAT for the company on a quarter-on-quarter basis up 2%, and on a year-on-year basis, it's a growth of, again, close to about 12%. So very, very steady quarter. Thank you, Prakash and Balaji, for joining in. We're awaiting more details on what the ARPU, that's the average revenue per user, is, and the subscriber growth numbers are. ARPU should be stable because there hasn't been a tariff hike. So the only way the company can increase tariff is if maybe some of their feature phone users migrate to 4G. So that's a value add. So in that sense, the ARPU goes up. But so expect the ARPUs to remain stable. But in the coming quarters, it's going to show that big jump in ARPUs. We're going to take your leave on that note. Thank you for tuning in to this Earnings Central. That's the standard disclaimer.